beneath the fun and splash lies a deadly truth. Moments of joy turned into nightmares. These 5 chilling stories reveal the shocking failures behind water park tragedies. It was August 7th, 2016. A day meant for family fun turned into an unimaginable tragedy at Schlitterbahn Water Park in Kansas City. The Schwab family, residents of Kansas, had visited the park for elected official day, when public officials and their families were granted free admission. Michelle and Scott Schwab, along with their 4 sons, were excited to spend the day enjoying the water rides, but it was their 10-year-old son, Caleb, who was the most eager. Little did they know that this day would end in a devastating loss. Caleb, the second of the Schwab's 4 children, had always been full of energy and curiosity. His parents, especially his father, Kansas State Representative Scott Schwab, were eager to give their children a memorable summer day. Caleb, with his older brother Nathan, set his sights on the park's most thrilling attraction, the Verrückt water slide. Towering at 168 feet, Verrückt held the title of the world's tallest water slide, a feat of engineering that had captivated thrill seekers since its opening. The ride had no age restrictions, and Caleb, at just 10 years old, was allowed to ride despite his small stature. He and Nathan climbed the 264 steps to the top of Verrückt, joining the line of eager riders. Caleb, weighing only 73 pounds, took the front seat of a 3-person raft with 2 women seated behind him. Nathan had already completed the ride and waited for his younger brother at the bottom, unaware that a tragedy was about to unfold. As Caleb's raft descended the slide, everything seemed normal until the raft went airborne over the second hill. The weight distribution, combined with the ride's high speed, caused the raft to lift off the slide surface. Caleb was forcefully thrown into the safety netting, where he struck a metal pole. The impact was fatal. He suffered catastrophic injuries on the spot. Witnesses below watched in horror as the raft, along with Caleb's lifeless body, completed its descent. Nathan, just 12 years old, saw the horrifying accident unfold in front of him. He screamed in terror, his voice rising above the chaos. He flew from the Verrückt. He flew from the Verrückt. Their mother, Michelle, rushed to reach Caleb, but bystanders held her back, fearing the devastating sight would be too much for her to bear. "There was a gentleman who wouldn't allow me to come close enough to see what was going on," Michelle later recalled. "He just kept saying, 'Trust me, you don't want to go any further.'" Meanwhile, Scott Schwab repeatedly asked in disbelief if his son was truly dead, grappling with the sudden and overwhelming loss. The aftermath of Caleb's death plunged the family into grief and disbelief. In the days that followed, an investigation into the circumstances surrounding the incident revealed shocking safety failures. Verrückt, although a marvel to onlookers, had been plagued with safety concerns long before Caleb's tragic ride. The slide's design and construction were carried out by individuals without any formal engineering expertise. Instead, they relied on trial and error methods, a dangerous gamble for a ride of such magnitude. Further investigation revealed that Caleb's light weight in the front of the raft contributed to the disaster, as it created an imbalance. This wasn't the first time that Raft B, the specific raft Caleb rode in, had gone airborne. In fact, it had a history of speeding abnormally fast and lifting off the slide, but no significant changes were made to correct the issue. Even more concerning was the improper use of Velcro seatbelts, which had reportedly come undone on previous rides. This lack of basic safety precautions contributed directly to Caleb's death. In 2017, the Schwab family settled with Schlitterbahn and other involved parties for approximately $20 million. The Verrückt slide was dismantled, and Schlitterbahn, Kansas City closed permanently in 2018. Caleb's death was not merely a freak accident, but a preventable tragedy caused by negligence and safety failures, forever marking a day that should have been filled with laughter and joy. It was July 8, 1980. A bright summer day at Action Park in Vernon, New Jersey, turned tragic when 19-year-old George Larson Jr. embarked on what would be his final ride. The Alpine Slide, one of the park's most popular attractions, was about to claim its first victim, forever changing the legacy of a place that would later become known as Class Action Park for its numerous accidents and lawsuits. George was a typical teenager enjoying a day at the notorious amusement park nestled in the mountains of northern New Jersey. Action Park had opened just 2 years earlier in 1978, quickly gaining popularity for its extreme attractions that pushed the boundaries of safety. The Alpine Slide was one of the park's signature rides, a 2,700-foot-long concrete and fiberglass track that snaked down the mountain, where riders would descend on small plastic sleds equipped with a simple handbrake. Unlike modern water slides with their carefully engineered safety features, the Alpine Slide was primitive by comparison. The track was made of concrete, fiberglass, and asbestos, materials that would cause severe abrasions if a rider fell off their sled. The only protection riders had was a small handbrake that often malfunctioned, leaving them with a terrifying choice: risk going too fast and flying off the track, or brake too hard and get rammed from behind by another rider. On that fateful day, George mounted his sled at the top of the mountain, likely feeling the same mix of excitement and trepidation that most riders experienced. The Alpine Slide offered a thrilling descent with sharp turns and steep drops. As he pushed off and began his journey down the mountain, everything seemed normal at first. Other park-goers were enjoying their day, unaware that they were about to witness a horrific accident. As George navigated a particularly tricky section of the track, something went terribly wrong. According to witnesses, his sled suddenly jumped the track on a curve. The momentum carried him off the concrete chute and sent him flying through the air. In a split second, George's head violently struck a large rock adjacent to the track. The impact was catastrophic. Park employees rushed to the scene, finding George unconscious and severely injured. Emergency services were called, and he was quickly transported to a nearby hospital. For 8 days, George fought for his life in the hospital, but the injuries to his head were too severe. On July 16, 1980, George Larson Jr. succumbed to his injuries, becoming Action Park's first recorded fatality. The investigation that followed revealed troubling details about the Alpine Slide's safety record. Former employees later admitted that accidents on the slide were so common that the park had purchased an additional ambulance specifically to transport injured riders to the hospital. On busy days, it wasn't unusual for the slide to cause dozens of injuries, ranging from scrapes and bruises to broken bones and concussions. What made George's death even more tragic was how preventable it was. The Alpine Slide had been plagued with design flaws from the beginning. The track deteriorated quickly under heavy use, developing cracks and gaps that could catch the small sleds and send riders flying. The handbrakes were notoriously unreliable, often failing completely and leaving riders with no way to control their speed. Despite these known issues, the park continued to operate the attraction with minimal modifications. George's family was devastated by his death. His parents had to cope not only with the loss of their son, but also with the knowledge that his death resulted from negligence and corner cutting. The park's owner, Gene Mulvihill, was known for his cavalier attitude toward safety regulations, often circumventing them entirely by creating his own insurance company to underwrite the park's liability. In the aftermath of George's death, Action Park made only minor adjustments to the Alpine Slide. The ride continued to operate for years afterward, causing countless more injuries before finally being shut down in the late 1990s. Remarkably, no criminal charges were ever filed against the park's management, despite the clear safety violations that led to George's death. George Larson Jr.'s tragic accident marked the beginning of Action Park's dark legacy. Over the years, 5 more people would die at the park, earning it nicknames like Traction Park and Accident Park among locals. The Alpine Slide alone would be responsible for thousands of injuries during its operation. Today, George's story serves as a sobering reminder of the consequences when amusement parks prioritize thrills over safety. His death, at just 19 years old, cut short a life full of promise and potential. While Action Park has since closed and reopened under new management with modern safety standards, the memory of George Larson Jr. and his tragic final ride on the Alpine Slide remains a haunting chapter in the park's infamous history. A young life needlessly lost to negligence and the pursuit of extreme entertainment. It was June 2, 1997. Quimby Galotti was a bright, ambitious young woman just days away from her high school graduation. That day, Quimby and her fellow Napa High School seniors were visiting Waterworld USA, a water park in Concord, California, when the unimaginable happened, forever changing the lives of the teenagers. At 18 years old, Quimby Galotti was a model student known for her vivacious personality, her involvement in the school's mock trial club, and her dedication to academic excellence. Like many of her classmates, Quimby was excited to celebrate the last days of high school with her peers before embarking on the next chapter of her life. That day at Waterworld was part of the traditional senior trip, a long-awaited event filled with anticipation. She and her classmates, along with chaperones, had boarded buses early that morning, eager to make memories before graduation, which was just days away. Waterworld, USA, now known as Six Flags Hurricane Harbor Concord, was a relatively new water park, having opened just 2 years prior. The park was known for its towering slides and thrilling water attractions, and Napa High students had chosen it specifically for the excitement it promised. Among its many rides, the Bonsai Pipeline stood out, a tall, open-air water slide that had become iconic for its steep drops and fast twists. With the excitement of the day also came a tradition. For years, Napa High seniors had clogged the water slides on their annual trip, a practice in which groups of students would pack the slides and go down in large numbers, defying safety rules in pursuit of fun. It was a well-known ritual, and this year's graduating class had grand plans. Whispers among the students suggested that more than 70 of them wanted to take part in clogging the Bonsai Pipeline. Even though it was a risky stunt, most were eager to participate, seeking to end their senior year with a bang. As the day drew to a close, the park announced over the loudspeakers that it was time for the Napa High group to head back to their buses. Instead of leaving, dozens of students rushed to the Bonsai Pipeline. Quimby, like many of her friends, was among them. Along with 32 other students, she climbed to the top of the slide, where a lifeguard was stationed to ensure safety. However, the group pushed past the lifeguard, determined to carry out their plan. The lifeguard blew her whistle and shouted, but it was too late. 33 students piled onto the slide at once. Moments later, disaster struck. The weight of the students proved too much for the slide structure, and it began to buckle. The fiberglass cracked under the pressure, and in a matter of seconds, the section of the slide that held the most students collapsed. The teenagers were thrown 40 feet to the ground below, some hitting the wooden support beams on their way down. Chaos ensued. Park goers watched in horror as bodies fell from the sky, some landing on concrete, others in shallow water, bushes, or against each other. Some were more fortunate than others. Many suffered broken bones and internal injuries, but one student would not survive. Quimby Galotti, the bright and promising 18-year-old, suffered catastrophic injuries to her head and chest after striking a support beam. Despite efforts to save her, she died from her injuries 45 minutes after the accident. The other injured students were rushed to nearby hospitals, and many would recover. But Quimby's death left a mark on her classmates and community. Napa High School's graduation ceremony, held just 10 days after the accident, was a somber affair. Some students attended in wheelchairs, while first responders and medical staff were invited to honor the lives affected by the tragedy. But Quimby Galotti wasn't there to graduate. Lawsuits followed, including a wrongful death suit filed by Quimby's father, Larry Galotti, who sought justice for the loss of his daughter. In the end, Quimby's family settled for $1.7 million, the largest of all the settlements related to the accident. Napa High School also established the Quimby Galotti Memorial Scholarship Assembly to provide financial aid and guidance to future students. The tragedy at Waterworld, USA led to significant changes in water park safety regulations across the country. The Bonsai Pipeline was permanently closed, and parks nationwide implemented stricter capacity limits and more rigorous enforcement of safety rules. The practice of clogging slides, once seen as a harmless senior prank, was recognized for the deadly risk it truly posed. For the Napa High School class of 1997, what should have been a joyous celebration of their achievements became a life-altering tragedy. The empty chair at graduation, meant for Quimby, served as a stark reminder of how quickly life can change. Her classmates, who had planned to embark on their adult lives together, instead found themselves grappling with grief, survivor's guilt, and the harsh reality that actions have consequences. Today, more than 2 decades later, Quimby Galotti's memory lives on through the scholarship in her name and in the hearts of those who knew her. Her tragic death stands as a sobering reminder of the importance of safety regulations and the devastating cost when they are ignored. What began as a day of celebration ended in heartbreak. A promising young life cut short in the pursuit of one final high school thrill. It was July 24, 1982. A sweltering summer day at Action Park in Vernon, New Jersey turned deadly for 15-year-old George Lopez. The teenager had come to the infamous amusement park with friends, looking forward to cooling off and enjoying the various water attractions. Instead, he would become the first victim of what employees would later grimly nickname the Grave Pool. Action Park's notoriously dangerous wave pool. Action Park had opened just 4 years earlier in 1978 and had quickly gained a reputation for its extreme attractions and lax safety standards. The park was the brainchild of Eugene Mulvihill, a businessman who believed in giving thrill seekers freedom, often at the expense of basic safety precautions. Among the park's many attractions was the tidal wave pool, a 100-foot wide by 250-foot long pool that could hold up to 1,000 people at a time. Unlike typical wave pools, Action Park's version was particularly dangerous. The pool reached a depth of 8 feet and generated waves up to 3 feet high using powerful air-pressurized pumps. These weren't gentle, rolling swells, but powerful, chaotic surges that could easily overwhelm even strong swimmers. Adding to the danger, the pool's bottom was painted blue, making it difficult for lifeguards to spot swimmers in distress. That Saturday afternoon, the wave pool was operating at near capacity. Hundreds of visitors packed the water, creating a chaotic scene that made it nearly impossible for lifeguards to monitor everyone effectively. Despite the park's claim of having up to 12 lifeguards on duty, former employees would later reveal that many were undertrained and overwhelmed, sometimes performing as many as 30 rescues per day. As the powerful waves began churning the water, George found himself in the deeper section of the pool. Whether he ventured there intentionally or was pushed by the crowd remains unclear. What is known is that at some point George began to struggle. In the crowded, churning water, his distress went unnoticed by both lifeguards and fellow swimmers. By the time anyone realized George was missing, it was too late. Lifeguards eventually spotted him submerged in the deep end and pulled him from the water. Frantic attempts at resuscitation began immediately. But despite these efforts, George Lopez was pronounced dead at the scene from drowning. The tragedy sent shockwaves through the local community. George was described by friends and family as a kind, energetic teenager with his whole life ahead of him. His parents were devastated, struggling to understand how their son could have drowned in a supervised attraction. In the aftermath of George's death, Action Park made minimal changes to the wave pool's operation. The park added more lifeguards and implemented some additional safety measures, but the fundamental dangers remained. Remarkably, the wave pool continued to operate, and the park faced no significant legal consequences. What made George Lopez's death even more tragic was that it wasn't enough to prompt meaningful change. Despite this clear warning sign, Action Park's wave pool would claim 2 more lives in the years that followed. In August 1984, 20-year-old Donald DePass drowned in the same pool, and in 1987, 18-year-old Gregory Grandchamps became the 3rd victim. Action Park's response to these incidents followed a disturbing pattern. The park would implement minor changes, enough to satisfy basic requirements, but never addressed the fundamental design flaws that made the wave pool inherently dangerous. The park's owner had created his own insurance company to underwrite the park's liability, effectively insulating himself from the financial consequences of accidents and deaths. George Lopez's death in 1982 marked the beginning of Action Park's darkest chapter. Over its 18 years of operation, at least 6 people would die at the park, earning it nicknames like Class Action Park and Traction Park among locals who were all too familiar with its dangers. Today, George Lopez is remembered as the first victim of a park that prioritized extreme thrills over basic safety. His death at just 15 years old serves as a sobering reminder of the consequences when amusement parks operate without proper oversight. A young life needlessly lost to negligence and the pursuit of profit. It was June 27, 1999. It was a warm summer day at Paramount's Great America theme park in Santa Clara, California. 7-year-old Danielle Gentile was enjoying a day of fun with her family. Excited to experience the thrilling water attractions that the park had to offer, Little did anyone know that this ordinary family outing would end in an unimaginable tragedy that would forever change pool safety regulations across America. Danielle, a vibrant and energetic second grader from Millbrae, California, had been looking forward to this trip for weeks. With her bright smile and playful spirit, she eagerly made her way through the park with her parents and siblings, eventually arriving at the Whirlwind Rapids water attraction in the park's splash zone area. The Whirlwind Rapids was a circular water ride where guests would sit in inner tubes and spin around a large pool before being funneled into a catch pool at the bottom. It was a popular attraction, especially on hot summer days, and the line was filled with excited children and their families. When it was finally Danielle's turn, she climbed into her inner tube and began the thrilling descent. She laughed as she spun through the rapids, the cool water providing relief from the summer heat. But as she reached the catch pool at the bottom of the ride, something went terribly wrong. Witnesses reported seeing Danielle's inner tube flip over as she entered the catch pool. In an instant, the young girl was submerged underwater. What happened next would haunt her family and other park goers for years to come. Beneath the surface of the catch pool was a powerful suction drain with a missing safety cover. As Danielle struggled underwater, her arm was suddenly caught in this uncovered drain. The suction force, estimated at hundreds of pounds of pressure, made it impossible for the 50-pound child to free herself. Parkgoers quickly noticed the overturned inner tube and alerted nearby lifeguards. A frantic rescue attempt began as staff and bystanders tried desperately to pull Danielle free from the powerful suction. Despite their efforts, they couldn't break the vacuum seal created by the drain. It took nearly 5 minutes before maintenance workers could shut down the pump system. By then, Danielle had been underwater far too long. Emergency responders performed CPR and rushed her to a nearby hospital, but the damage was irreversible. Danielle Gentile was pronounced dead from drowning. The investigation that followed revealed disturbing negligence. The 12-inch drain had been operating without its required safety cover, creating a deadly suction trap. Park maintenance records showed that the cover had been removed during routine cleaning and never properly replaced. Even more disturbing, no secondary anti-entrapment systems were in place, a basic safety feature that could have prevented this tragedy. Danielle's death sent shockwaves through the amusement park industry and led to significant changes in water attraction safety. Her parents, devastated by their loss, channeled their grief into advocacy. Their efforts, along with similar tragic cases, eventually contributed to the passage of the Virginia Graham-Baker Pool and Spa Safety Act in 2007, which mandated anti-entrapment drain covers and other safety measures in public pools and spas across the United States. Today, Danielle's story serves as a sobering reminder of the hidden dangers that can lurk in water attractions. What began as a carefree summer day ended in an unthinkable tragedy, one that could have been prevented with proper safety protocols and maintenance. Her legacy lives on in the improved safety standards that now protect countless children from suffering a similar fate. These tragedies led to real change, stricter rules, better safety, and hard-earned lessons. Behind every measure is a life lost. Don't miss our next video for more stories that shape the world.